Brian Danielson is the AEW World's Champion, and Swerve Strickland is just another guy again. Stick around and let's talk about it. Hello, I'm Marvin, and I'm the Movie Monster. AEW All In was this past week, and my friends and I watched it live as part of our AEW All In watch party, along with a few thousand of you amazing and generous monsters. The show was honestly better than I thought it would be. And, Tooney, why are you out here ahaing at me?
Because it finally happened. You finally heaped universal praise on one of my shows. Game, set, and match, monster.
No, I said it was better than I thought it would be. Mostly because I thought it was going to be the single worst wrestling show I've ever sat through.
And it wasn't?
No, it wasn't.
Game, set, and match, monster.
There were actually a few matches that I liked, particularly the main event. It was a stellar showing by two stellar athletes.
This is the greatest day of my life.
It was a good match, Tooney.
Yes, I know.
But I was a little perplexed by the ending.
What?
Well, yeah, I felt like Swerve had it in him to be a great champion, and you never really gave him the chance to prove that. You cut the legs out from under his reign and gave the title to a 43-year-old with a history of major concussions and health issues.
How dare you?
What?
All In was perfect. It was perfection, as though crafted by the gods themselves, you grifter hater. Why are you so obsessed with negativity and bashing me?
Tooney, I said the show was better than I thought, and I liked the match. I just offered up some very slight criticism.
What is wrong with you? How can you live with yourself?
All this over one little critique?
I hope you suffer through the worst of this world, that the gates of hell itself open up beneath you and suck you into the flaming eternal abyss where the trash like you belongs! This is the worst day of my life, and it's all because of you!
Neat. Anyway, here's our full conversation on Brian Danielson's title win and what that might mean. I'll be back at the end of the video to tie it all up, but for now, let's ask ourselves why on Tooney Town Wrestling. I also really liked the main event. Brian Danielson versus Swerve, and yeah, I thought it was a great match. It was great. We were so punch drunk by that point. We were kind of like not really focusing on it, but it really was a good match. Like they were really working their butts off. They were. I didn't like when Swerve no sold and did the brush off. Like, that didn't even hurt. Like, it's one thing if you're no selling and you're like fired up about it, like the fighting spirit kind of thing. But he wasn't doing that. He was
I hated the fake injury again.
We need to get through a Daniel Bryan or Brian Danielson, whatever the heck, match without them trying to make us think he's injured.
Because here's the thing. They're going to gaslight this so much that when he actually does get injured, nobody's going to
No one's going to believe him. That already happened. Or no.
Yeah, that's true.
I
maybe when his head is facing the other opposite way, I mean, then they'll realize.
Wow, those special effects are getting more and more realistic.
It did happen because it happened. That's why I made my avatar on Twitter. The one where he's in a hospital bed and he has his arm all up and the leg up.
Right.
I was trying to do it where he had a knife in his head, but the AI program wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would assume not. I would assume that violates the terms of service.
But that's why I did it, is because they were just faking it over and over again. And then he got injured and we didn't know he was injured because they had faked it so much. And maybe that's Tony's idea. Maybe his thought is now if he really does get injured, nobody will know because they'll all think it was fake. I don't.
And you know him, he'd hide it. I mean, this is the guy that said Matt Hardy didn't have a concussion when his head bounced off the concrete floor like a basketball.
Then he found out Matt Hardy had a wife. He was just like, oh, damn! I didn't NDA her either.
Good Lord. When you were in that coma, did you feel your brain getting damaged? Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, God, sometimes he really is Don Carnage, isn't he? Tony Khan, just like, don't fire at will. He's my second in command.
He knows when to play aloof. That's his problem.
So do we want to get into the reasons why we think he won?
Yeah,
No?
So
Please.
I mean, look, the clearly, as much as people want to hum and haw, the WBD deal cannot possibly be done yet. And I think what Dis and I were saying was part of the reason, part of the negotiation might be the world title has to be on a known quantity, a known WWE quantity. And you can't put it on Jericho right now because that would do more harm than good. And because kind of like how Jericho was the first champion solely for advertising, I believe.
You're right.
And for legitimacy. I think now you kind of have to. TNA did the same thing when they were going to Spike. They put the belt back on Jarrett, even though that was a major misstep. But always heard they felt that they needed the belt on Jarrett when they went to Spike because he was a guy people would remember from the WWE.
Arguably, they did the same thing recently when they put the belt on Dolph. Because they were reportedly trying to get something with like a CW or something like that.
Yeah.
And, that would be the time to do it. I do want to give a shout out to MJG or some X Era on Twitter. He was the first place I saw that idea. But it totally clicked in my mind once he said it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it makes
I
a
defer
lot
to
of sense.
Kev. I'd love to know what you think about it, my man.
I personally think that the deal is done and that they're trying to renegotiate it because it's not what they want. The other half of it is I love BD as much as the next person, but that guy ain't it.
Thank you.
This isn't Hogan going to WCW. This isn't Austin or The Rock or Flair or Cena jumping. This is just a WWE guy who's there, but without the power of the machine. Because if he really meant that much, they would have over 1 million viewers. And
I'm not saying that it's a good move. I'm not saying that they're doing it correctly. I'm saying that they're in panic mode and they need something.
I get you.
Edge is gone. Where's Moxley? Moxley wasn't even in All In. It makes me almost wonder because there's been no injury report. Well, I honestly was thinking about looking his name up in the Florida criminal records to see if maybe there's a reason that he can't travel or something like that because he just wasn't there for no reason.
He had to go to one of his indie bookings, I bet.
Well, he's to be getting tapped out by Kinko's managers.
Just stop doing these tournaments for the love of God.
Everybody wants to be badass until it's time to be badass, and
But there's no recognizable face. There's nobody, and to say that is Brian Danielson somebody who's going to bring eyes to a show? Probably not. But is Brian Danielson someone who is going to be recognizable when you mention him as your champion to somebody?
Probably
in
not.
The industry? No, he will be.
Probably not.
He will be. They'll say, "Oh, he's the yes guy."
There's no
Brian, maybe.
You're 100% wrong. Well, because they'll say, "You remember him? He was Daniel Bryan. He's the yes guy," and they'll say, "Oh, the yes guy. I remember the yes guy. I was wondering where
10
he was.
years
He's
ago."
with you?" Yes.
No, people remember the yes thing. That was people had fun doing it.
And
it was
10 years ago.
It was an anniversary WrestleMania moment. It was WrestleMania 30. People remembe that.
And not only that, but you're talking about a guy who was you're talking about a guy who was excited and gave a show to CM Punk, who hadn't been in the business for a decade at that point. Brian Danielson had at least been in the business and on WWE television since his peak, which was sooner than Punk's peak. So the fact that he remembered Punk and the fact that he was such a big fan of Punk means that he obviously knows who he is. He's more excited about him being there than Swerve Strickland.
Who was a fan of Punk?
The WBD guy.
Zaslav? That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
He knew who he was
for a second.
I believe he knew who he was.
That's a real story. I'm sorry.
I believe it either.
The second he said, like, "Oh, David Zaslav cost me $1 bill, Phil," I was like, David Zaslav doesn't call you nothing because he doesn't know who you are.
That was a dog whistle.
No,
I think
100%. There's no way.
I think a lot of these executives are especially in areas that they're working in, even if they aren't
you think David Zaslav, a guy who is in charge of overseeing multi-million-dollar films, is worrying about a rinky-dink wrestling show on his second biggest cable company that featuring and knows an obscure WWE champion that hadn't been around for a decade? I don't buy that for a hot.
I will interject though, because people have talked for years about how hands-on Zaslav was when he was running Discovery, and considering that Punk was the only person to bring them back over $1 million after $1 million became unattainable, I would imagine that when discussing how this show does, his name probably came up, especially when they decided they were going to give it a go.
Yeah, I'm not saying Zaslav is a huge CM Punk fan. I'm saying Zaslav said, "Give me the history on these guys." And so CM Punk was in WWE, and he was in a big feud with John Cena. And Zaslav goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'd rather have him." And I think they do the same thing with Brian Danielson, because when you say Swerve Strickland is my champion, who was he? Well, he was in Hit Row in WWE. There's nothing. But with Brian Danielson, at least you can say, he had a big moment at WrestleMania.
We got an accountant down the hall who's got the same name, Brian Danielson.
It's also, Total Divas though did a lot for him. And it's not, I'm not saying it to be flippant. That was a very well watched show that had a very big fan base, and it exposed him to a different group of fans. So, yeah, he is marketable, and like you're sitting there, if you're watching with your girlfriend and you see him on, that's the guy from Total Divas. We'll wince will know that he's blah blah blah. But I mean, listen, I get it. I just think it's a fool's errand.
Yes, I will agree with that.
It was one thing when you could parade Hulk Hogan, down outside of the NGM Grand, because that was a momentous deal. The guy had changed the face of wrestling, and now he was down south. I don't know, man. I personally think that this was, I get it. If this is what they want to do, fine, you shoot your shot. But I think this was a big disservice to Swerve. This was an opportunity to cement him as not just another guy who held your belt guy, yet another placeholder. This would have elevated Swerve and potentially had helped him actually become an AEW name. And it's like, well, and for what? For a guy who's going to maybe have 2 or 3 matches before he's done. And
we're going to find out Wednesday.
And I got to suffer through Swerve versus the soy cowboy again. And I don't care. I don't care that he has. I don't care that he hasn't washed his hair, and his mustachio is scruffy. He's still a little b-boy. I don't care.
If you need more evidence that WWE is putting all his eggs in the ex-WWE guy basket, I'm sorry. If you want more evidence that Tony Khan is doing that, Christian is now the #1 contender, and they just put out a press release for Grand Slam in Australia that lists every WWE wrestler they have, including Paul White, and lists them with their AEW names and then their WWE names afterwards. So
that's
let's say Paul White
made a champion.
Formerly Big
It should have been Christian.
You
were about to say this, that who else could it have been? It should have been Christian. He's tall. He looks like a professional wrestler. He doesn't look like a cameraman like Brian Danielson does.
And it still could be Christian, because he's the #1 contender now. So he could end up being the one who this could have been just a feel-good moment,
They didn't need a feel-good moment. They needed to build stars. They needed to build Swerve Strickland.
Hey, dude, when did this become? You think I'm defending it? I think it's a bad idea. I'm not for it at all. But I'm just saying what Tony's delusional
the reason why.
Is.
Yeah, it's just the reason
that's all
why.
it is.
Because there has to be a reason to either that, or Tony is just that big of a mark, and he just wants Danielson's name injected into the lineage of that belt.
Don't hate me, Dis.
I don't hate you. It's just every once in a while I find myself defending something I don't want to defend because I'm not for it. And it's and I realize
I love
exactly.
when the two of you fight. It's my favorite thing. I love when the two of you fight.
Because he always gets me to defend stuff I hate, and I don't understand it.
Well, there you have it. While we have no definitive answer as to why this decision was made, there's a lot of speculation. Was this the mandate of a network looking to make a deal? Was it the whims of a Ritalin-fueled, creatively bankrupt fanboy manchild? Let's ask said manchild. Tooney, you still with us? Jeez, are you still seething from that one minor critique?
Minor critique? You questioned the booking of AEW. That is a major blow against pro wrestling itself.
All right, no it's not, but let's try to focus here. Tooney, why did you put the belt on Danielson?
My Brian Danielson is the most deserving champion in AEW history.
You're not worried he's going to get hurt again and have to vacate the title?
Of course not. My doctors have assured me that any and all injuries sustained by my Brian Danielson will be minor and he'll be able to work through them.
Your doctor told you this preemptively?
Yup. He's the same doctor who cleared my Soraya and my Sting for active competition. Oh, here he is now.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Tooney. And thanks to all of you for stopping by today. Hope you'll stop by for Tooney Talk Wrestling every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. EST. It's a live stream pro wrestling podcast where you can interact with me live and make your voice heard as part of the Tooney Town community. Oh, and if you're a Patreon member, then you were able to see this video a whole day before it dropped. If you liked what you saw here today, please like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell icon to get notified of new videos as they drop. From all of us here at the Tooney Town channels, I'm Marvin the Movie Monster. Now get out of here!